Public Utility District. And Shauna, could you do a roll call, please?
Thank you. Director Aguirre?
Here.
Director Finn?
Here.
Vice President Bender?
Here.
President Ellis?
Here.
Director Laliotis?
Here.
Thank you.
And Krista, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
And ready? Begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Michael, are there any changes to the agenda tonight?
No changes tonight.
No changes, okay. All right, public input. This is time set aside for the public to address the board on any matter not on the agenda. Testimony related to any agendized matter should be addressed at the time that that item is considered. The public may comment on any subject as not on the agenda. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes, but speaker time may be reduced at the discretion of the board president if there are a large number of speakers on any given subject. Does anybody have any public input? No public input, so we'll close that and move on to director updates. Joe, do you have anything to update us on?
I have nothing to update tonight.
All right. Krista, how about you?
I do, because I missed our last meeting, which I'm very sorry I wasn't able to be here. But I'm very happy to be back, and so I have, a whole month's worth of director comments. So I took some notes. I just want to take a moment today, which is almost exactly a year since I won my seat on this board. And I wanted to share a little bit my evolving vision for our community and the vital role that we at the PUD will play, since I have 3 minutes. I think of Truckee as a little ship sailing on the Sea of the Sierra, and as such, we need to be self-sufficient and sustainable as much as we can be. So imagine this. Our power purchase agreements are well-diversified and include wind, small hydro, solar, geothermal, and shares in large-scale electric projects, storage projects, such as the ACES project, which is the world's largest renewable energy storage venture that's going on right now in Utah. They store energy as compressed air in Utah's massive salt caverns. We have strategically withdrawn from all fossil fuel generation, thus sparing our customers the financial burdens of stranded assets. Truckee has invested in a community solar project, which generates clean, renewable energy 245 days a year, which is our average number of sunny days. And that, of course, is paired with a solar storage project. And at night, when the sun isn't shining, we have access to a small local biomass plant that provides the triple benefit of supplying renewable power on demand, creating local jobs, and reducing the fuel loads in our local forests, thus lessening the danger of catastrophic wildfire and improving the health of our forest ecosystem. We have facilitated the transition to electric vehicles for our school district, the town fleet, and our residential customers. We now have access to their batteries as a tool to help us at peak load times and during emergency outages. This can also be a tool to help mitigate the single point of failure that is our 100% reliance on Nevada Energy to deliver our electricity. We will have restructured our rates and our rebates to help our customers change their habits to use energy when the sun is flying high. Our hot water heaters are all grid integrated and help us shift our loads, shave our peaks, and integrate our renewables. All of these accomplishments and more can be driven by the PUD in partnership with the town, the sanitary district, our community foundation, Tesla, the hospital and airport districts, and our representatives in the state, assembly, and senate. This is just a vision. As I'm sure Michael Hawley has noticed, it is not a roadmap. It is not connected to, a plan to get us there, but it can only be accomplished, in accordance with our mission statement. And these are just some of the pieces of the puzzle that are on the table. But I want to thank our staff for their knowledge and their patience with helping me think things through. And I'd like to invite my fellow board members to share their visions of the future in the hopes that we can identify areas of overlap and common goals that we can pursue together. In the immortal words of Wayne Gretzky, let's skate to where the puck is going, not to where it's been. Thank you. That's my director's comment tonight. As I shouldn't take a week off because too much time.
Certainly wasn't expecting a Wayne Gretzky quote.
The man is He's a god.
Okay, Jeff, can you top that?
No. No, but thank
Sorry.
you. Yeah. So, and I don't have any other comments.
Tony, do you have anything?
No comments. Thanks for your vision, Krista.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was very good. Okay, I don't have anything either, and so we'll move on to the public hearing. Item number 7. We'll conduct a public hearing on a draft fiscal year 20 and 21 budget and consideration of approving the action items related to the fiscal year 2020 and 2021 budget. And I'll let you take over. Thank you.
Good evening, President Ellis, members of the board. Can you hear me? Not at all. And I thought that might be the case.
Is it on? No.
Michael,
They were telling me earlier today, I need to be
TV
very
doesn't work tonight.
quiet.
Lo and behold, the batteries were not full.
That's always the way, isn't it? Did you turn it off, turn it back on?
Didn't leave them outside. It was a nice sunny day.
That works.
All right, now we're back on, okay. So, good evening, this is the public hearing to receive public comment on the proposed budget. We've been on quite a journey as we've embarked on this budget process this year. This budget process started August 21st. We have reviewed the mission, goals, objectives, assumptions, labor, including organizational charts, debt. On September 4th, Joe Horvath presented the district's purchase power plan. We reviewed the capital and operating budgets of all the cost centers in a number of workshops. We've also compiled this proposed budget with the financial master plan and the current proposed budget is in line with our long-term goals. On October 16th, we had the full summary budget for board review and set the public hearing, which we are doing for tonight, regarding this proposed budget. Again, these are just the general assumptions that we utilized in compiling the fiscal year 20 and 21 budget. Tonight's public hearing was advertised in the Sierra Sun on October 25th, and the full draft was included with the packet for tonight's meeting as attachment 1 for this agendized item. And no changes were made since the October 16th presentation. This is the comparison of the fiscal year 20 and 21 or 20 budget to the fiscal year 19 budget. This is a balanced budget, and in the workshops we've reviewed the variances we see here in quite some depth. This is fiscal year 21 compared to 20, and as you can see, the variances become more uniform. But I'll draw your attention to that bottom line where it says 2 reserves. There is those large positive variances for reserves as are in fiscal year 21, as the funds being allocated to the reserves are significantly increased in that year, particularly for the water utility, and we had discussed that. So for fiscal impact, staff is proposing a balanced budget for fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21. The proposed budget is consistent with the district's long-term goals. And staff's recommendation is to conduct the public hearing and receive public comment, adopt Resolution 2019-26 to approve the fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21 budget, approve the fiscal year 20 and 21 purchase power plan, and approve the budgeted transfers needed to balance the fiscal year 20 and 21 budget. And I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Tony, you want to start it off? Do you have any questions? Do I need to open it up for public comment?
You need to open up the public hearing.
You could accept director comment, and then at the time that we're ready for public comment, you can open the public hearing.
Up to you, Bob. You're the prez.
Okay. Tony, you have any questions or answers?
No. this process has been thoroughly vetted over the last few months, and I appreciate staff's hard work in presenting a budget for the next 2 years. So that's it.
Jeff, do you have any comments?
A lot of work. We made it. I do have something, but it's not on the budget. It was on the advertising for Sierra Sun. That just kind of, it's like, I never read the newspaper anymore. So I just wanted to throw it out there. We can think about that later. The budget looks awesome. And I think it's law that you advertise in the paper, but that we have to do that for the public hearing.
Yes, that's correct. That doesn't preclude other means of advertising.
Oh, it doesn't preclude, got it.
Correct.
At least have to do that.
Yes.
Copy.
But if you recall, the board's preference has been to always advertise in the Sierra Sun. And we do advertise more items than we're legally obligated to do. Okay, we're doing that for the purpose of transparency.
Right.
But if the board would like to provide other direction in that area, we're more than happy to accept it.
I think you should continue the transparency and continue to overdo it.
I like the way it's done.
Well, my only thought was with our, right here, the piece of paper that we advertised, the big meeting we had a month ago, the whole transitional
That was a big
process.
push, though.
That was a big push.
Yeah, that was an expensive push too.
Yeah, right.
Like for regular stuff.
No, just in terms of advertising, posting on Facebook, whatever,
Gotcha.
things like that. More social, electronic media than in addition to. But it's just a random thought. It was not premeditated. It just came up
It just came up.
while watching that, so.
I will tell you that staff right now is currently looking into our use of social media and what's the most ethical and where we get our best bang for the buck right now. A lot of people think that social media is free for the use.
It's not.
It is so not free.
Right.
A lot of staff hours go into that to use it properly. And we're trying to be frugal. But we are having that discussion, and I would expect that in the next couple of months, we'll bring that back to the board to share with you what our thoughts
Perfect.
are.
Yeah, nothing urgent, was a random thought, and good to hear.
Yeah.
So
So
thank
you're,
you.
we're,
Well,
Yeah.
just a reminder that every meeting, and, since August 21st, we've been going through this budget process. So this whole process has been publicized through, multiple meetings,
Yeah.
multiple agendas. So, there is also that level of advertisement. The public hearing, unfortunately, comes at the end of all of that hard work. But, in essence, we've been advertising this process for, the last 4 months.
And also keep in mind, when we advertise in the paper in the print section, it's also online for it being, many times I don't get a copy of the paper, but I
Oh,
just.
that's true.
I just go online
SierraSun.com,
and then
yeah.
I can read what's going on. So it's a
That's a
nice
good
feature,
point.
that's a nice dual feature right there.
Cool.
I'm not opposed to, alternatives. I'm just saying that, in addition to the public hearing, this whole process has been
So we're already
transparent.
online with SierraSun.com.
So,
Yeah. Good. All right, that was it for me. Thank you.
Krista?
Excellent.
I would just echo with the rest of the board, you've brought us along on this whole process. You guys have done a great job of breaking out all the individual aspects of this budget and explaining things for months now. So thank you. I was happy to read in this, there was a mention of community solar, that we can meet the rooftop solar requirement through a community thing, which I was, for some reason, hadn't connected that in my brain. So it was cool to read. But yeah, good job. Thank you.
Joe?
Yeah, it looks like everything's been said. That's good. And I noticed that in the past years, they used to just put our mission statement in there. And the way it's broken down and this one, I thought that came out really nice.
Oh.
Yeah.
There it is, page 12 of 135 of the packet.
Well, that's all right. It's still in there.
Still in there, yeah.
And that worked up to it, so it was good, it was very good. And I don't know how you guys do it, but you do get together and you come up And here it is. So, thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, also, I'd just like to add, Regina, you and the whole staff do a great job of putting this budget together. I understand it's a ton of work, and unfortunately, you have to deal with us and get our approval. But thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you in the future and a lot more proposals like this. Thank you. Okay, we have a recommendation up there.
It would be appropriate to open the public hearing now
Okay,
and accept public comment?
all right. I'd like to open the public hearing and is there any public comment at this time?
There's no public.
No public, huh? Okay, guess we'll close public comment and move on and move to, what do we do now? What do we do?
I was just saying that's a formal close of the public hearing.
Okay, so now we're formally closing the public hearing. And do we need to make a motion on this?
Yes, you've got 3 action items on there, items 2, 3, and 4.
I move staff's recommendation for items 2, 3, and 4 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Tony moved and Joe seconded for items 2, 3, and 4. Could you play have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Director Aguero.
Yes.
Director Finn.
Yes.
Vice President Bender.
Yes.
Speak
President
for a few
Ellis?
minutes.
Yes.
Director Laliotis.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Regina. All right, moving on to the consent calendar. Does anybody want to move anything off of the consent calendar, or is everything satisfied with what's on there?
Looks good. I'll move approval of the consent calendar, items 8 through 11.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
And is there any public input on this, on the consent calendar? No public input, so we'll close that. And then, is there any other comments from the directors on this? Okay. And all in favor of the consent calendar, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. And then we're moving on to the action items. Action item number 12. And Regina's back. For consideration and review of the district's investment policy and delegation of authority to the district treasurer.
Okay, so only the board can modify the district's investment policy and delegate authority to the treasurer to perform the duties as described in the district's investment policy. The main purpose of the district's investment policy is to maintain the safety of the principal while also evaluating credit risk, interest rate risk, and making sure that the investments are in places that have liquidity that meet the district's operating goals and needs. District Code is our guiding document for the investment policy, and within it we prepare for the board the monthly report of cash and investment balances, the quarterly report of investment funds, yields, and terms, and then annual review of the investment policy, which includes reviewing compliance with current guidance and regulations, reviewing compliance with the investment objectives, evaluating the diversification of the investments, managing the acceptable custodial risk, and evaluating financial and economic trends. The current investments meet the objectives and requirements of diversification and custodial risk. We have the U.S. Bank interest-bearing checking accounts, California Local Agency Investment Fund, otherwise known as LAIF, Placer County Treasurer's Investment Portfolio, Utah Public Treasurer's Investment Fund, and then we also have some short-term investments in money market funds. This is just a graph of the projections. We were with LAIF, solely with LAIF, starting up till 2013, and then we diversified by adding Placer County Treasurer's Investment Fund, and then the Utah Treasurer's Investment Fund. And so the red line just projects what it would have been if we had stayed with LAIF, and the black line is what it is with the three investment portfolio, with the diversity there. And so, as you can see, we have outperformed what we would have been if we had just stayed with LAIF. So it's just nice to see that with the diversification there. So I have reviewed the investment policy. It is compliant with the current guidance and regulations. It is consistent with district code. The funds are diversified. There is an acceptable level of custodial risk, and is appropriate for financial and the economic trends that we are seeing today. No revision to the investment policy is being proposed at this time. So for fiscal impact, the fiscal impact of this item varies on the rate of return through certain investments as the policy allows. And staff recommendation is that the board review the district's investment policy as described in section 3.20.012 and provide direction as needed. And then delegate authority to me as the treasurer, as Regina Wise, district treasurer, to invest district funds for fiscal year 20 according to the district's investment policy. And I'll be happy to answer any additional questions at this time.
Okay, is there any public input at this time? No public input, I'll close that. And Joe, do you have any comments? For
Regina, back there you said something about custodial risk,
Yeah.
and you're the custodian?
Well,
Do you think about that every now and then, or what?
I
I
think
mean,
about
you're
it a
in charge
lot.
of everything, huh?
I think about that a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. It's just making sure that what we invest in is keeping the principal at its safest, is as safe as possible.
You just keep it going in the even keel.
We want to make sure that it's available for us when we need it, so.
And
yeah.
no, oh, okay, that's all we do, good. And I know it is too, so that's great.
Yeah,
That's a big job you're doing there.
thank you.
Thank you.
Krista, you have any comments?
I don't, really. This is not my
Okay.
strong point.
Jeff?
Looks good. Happy to give you that authority again.
Well, I'll point out that it was the board's decision to diversify away from LAIF, and the area between the two curves is the result of that decision. That was money that was made for our ratepayers directly by a board decision.
Quite a bit,
Yeah.
yeah.
Tony?
No, I appreciate that comment, Michael. I remember back when we did that, and LAIF was really struggling, and Placer County was actually performing pretty well at the time, and we made that switch, and I think it's been great, and nice to see that LAIF has caught back up. As some of the markets have improved over the last few years. So, but I appreciate this report every month. It's really helpful for the board to understand how our investments are performing, and how the diversification has helped us continue to grow, while some of the less risky investments were lagging behind. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, you've been doing a great job with this. I'm glad we added the Utah program, and I think it's been great that we've been spreading it out, and it looks really good. So I think the board would probably like you to continue doing what you've been doing. Is that the consensus?
So I'll move to delegate authority to Regina Wise, District Treasurer, to invest district funds for fiscal year 20, according to the district's investment policy.
Second the motion.
Okay, Jeff motion and Joe seconded. We have a roll call vote?
Thank you, Director Aguero,
Yes.
Director Finn,
Yes.
Vice President Bender,
Yes.
President Ellis,
Yes.
Director Laliotis.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to action item number 13, consideration of signing documents for the Payson Power Project bond issuance with UAMPS. And Joe Horvath, it's all yours.
Well, good evening. Good evening, President Ellis and members of the board. It's good to be here tonight. Tonight is action item number 13. So the board approved a power sales agreement with UAMPS for the Payson Power Project. back in December 1st of 2009, 10 years ago almost. This project represents the Nebo Power Station, a 140 megawatt combined cycle natural gas-fired generating station in Payson City, Utah. It is completely owned by UAMPS members. The district has a fairly small share, a 3 2/3 share, or about 5 megawatt share of this plant. This project was originally financed with bonds back in 2005 with a maturity date of 20 years. So in the year 2025, it would become debt-free. The project was refinanced in 2012 at a lower interest rate. The project is an excellent fit with, and it complements our existing power supply resources. It's flexible, it's on demand, and it can be used typically during high load hours. And it also, most significantly, it's a backup or a firming resource to the intermittent nature of generation from renewable resources, including Horse Butte Wind, Pleasant Valley Wind, and our future Red Mesa Solar project. So UAMPS has been pursuing bond refinance options to take advantage of very low interest rates currently available in the marketplace. This has resulted in their Payson Power Project Refunding Revenue Bonds Series 2019. It's a mouthful. I'll just call them the 2019 bonds. So the 2019 bonds will refund the bonds issued back in 2012, and it'll achieve debt service savings. This is similar to a homeowner refinancing their mortgage to save money. So the total cash flow savings for UAMPS members is $5.5 million over the next 5 years, and the district's portion of that is approximately $200,000. And the maturity date of the bonds remains unchanged. So in 2025, the project will become debt-free, and the cost, of course, will become lower to the district and all of the UAMPS members. But in order to proceed with the refinancing, UAMPS must receive so-called bring-down certificates and legal opinions from all the project participants for the bond closing. These essentially reconfirm the certificates and opinions that were delivered at the time of the original execution of the contract 10 years ago. And so a new bring-down certificate and a new legal opinion is required for the participation in this refinance, the 2019 bonds. District Council has reviewed the documents and provided input to UAMPS. UAMPS has approved that and incorporated the changes into the documents, a copy of which was in your board packet. And the fiscal impact essentially is, it's a debt service savings. Again, UAMPS is going to save $5.5 million over the next 5 years. The district's portion of that is $200,000, and the maturity date will be debt-free in about 5 years from now. So staff recommendation is to approve and authorize the president of the board to execute the bring-down certificate for the Payson Power Project Refunding Revenue Bonds Series 2019 with UAMPS, and also to authorize the general counsel to execute a legal opinion for the Payson Power Project Refunding Revenue Bonds Series 2019 with UAMPS. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, is there a public input on this subject? No public input, we'll move on. Tony, do you have any comments?
One question before we start. Steve, can you give some input into number 2 on the recommendation? We don't generally ask the board to provide you authorization to make an opinion.
That's correct. We generally don't. Generally, my actions follow the other actions as necessary to complete the transaction. So I saw that on the draft staff report, and I called it out as something unusual, but it's not harmful. So I didn't suggest that it be stricken. It's something that's not really necessary. You know, when the board takes action to authorize the bring-down certificate, which is in effect authorizing the refinancing, then in effect you're authorizing the other actions that are necessary to complete that transaction. Opinion of counsel is generally one of those actions. Okay. So it's generally not something that's brought to the board, but I didn't see a harm in it, so I didn't suggest it be stricken.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any comments. Seems pretty straightforward. Some cost savings in the short term for this project, of which we are a partial owner. So it sounds like a pretty simple process right now.
Joe?
Agreed. Thank you. Save some cash.
Krista?
Yeah, no, I agree. If we can pay it down more quickly, yay.
Joe, you say we just have a small piece of power in the Tyson project, but then in here you also say that it's it also serves as a firm or backup resource. Now, is that because it'll be, it ties into the Horse Butte and the other projects?
I'm saying there that it complements the other projects, and it complements well with wind that's variable. Sometimes the wind blows a lot, sometimes it doesn't. It can vary from day to day. So this project is a great fit with those types of intermittent generation.
It doesn't matter whether you got a small portion in there or not, it's very workable for us.
It's small compared to the overall portion, but it's the right size for us.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks, Joe. So the way I understand it, it's the debt will be paid off in about a little over 5 years, is that correct?
Yes, so the bonds back when they were issued in 2005 were 20-year bonds. When they refinanced in 2012, they still retain the same maturity date, and we're doing the same thing now. We're refinancing for that short period to save money, but the bonds will be paid off in 2025.
Wow. Now, is there going to be any major work they're going to have to do in the next 10 or 15 years on this project where they'll have to refinance again? Or, I mean, make another loan to keep the project going?
Director Ellis, that was the exact question that I grilled him over during pre-flight.
Okay.
I wish I had a bell. Ding.
The answer is no. The project has been putting money away. When the bonds are paid off, the debt is paid. Built into the way that UAMPS conducts all their projects, not just this one, is they charge each member an extra amount and they put it into a capital reserve account so that they can do capital improvements, maintenance, and
Okay.
improvements over the years. So the answer is
So, I mean, it's like, you know, on some power plants that last 40 years, 50 years, whatever, how long do you expect this to continue, or just as long as they keep doing their retrofits, huh?
It's probably has an overall life of about 35 to 40 years.
Okay.
So we're at year 15 essentially in its life. The bonds will be paid off in year 20 of its life. So after the bonds are paid off, it probably has another 15 years of life. In that range, 15 to 20.
And then what is the approximate cost that for our energy on that project right now?
Pardon me. I want to say it's in the $60 a megawatt range $60 per megawatt range price for the energy.
Is that low compared to the rest of our energy, or
That's
high?
about average.
That's okay.
So when the bonds, when the mortgage is all paid
Paid
off,
off.
so to speak, we're going to see a savings. So the price of this resource will drop.
Okay, great. Thank you very, very much. So I guess we need to make a motion here, or two motions. Anybody want to make a motion?
Go ahead, Bender.
I'll move staff's recommendation for item 1, approve and authorize the president, et cetera, and item number 2, authorize the general counsel, et cetera, as stated and presented.
Is there a second?
Second on both.
Okay, Jeff moved and Joe seconded, and could we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Finn?
Yes.
Vice President Bender?
Yes.
President Ellis?
Yes.
Director Laliotis?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Oh, you got a little extra going.
All right, now we're moving on to workshop number 14, review of the Truckee Donner PUD Water Utility Cross Connection Control Program. And Brian is going to tell us all about that.
Thank you, President Ellis, members of the board. This is workshop item number 14. This is intended to be part two of, or this is part two of what is intended to be a three-part series of presentations. If you can recall, at the October 16th board meeting, we provided an introduction to cross-connection control programs and the requirements here at the district. We briefly went over some definitions of what cross-connection and backflow are, what potential backflows may exist in our water distribution systems. We went over and reviewed some of the components, functions, and applications of various backflow prevention assemblies. And we covered the basic components of what a cross-connection control program is. And then finally, we reviewed some of the federal, state, and local requirements in order to maintain our compliance with the State Water Resources Control Board and our permit to operate a public water system here at the Truckee Donner PUD. So some new information for this evening's presentation. I'd like to go over a little bit more of what the actual program here at the district entails. We went over what a general program is and what some of the assemblies are and what their functions are. I want to give a little introduction and oversight into, or overview into, what our responsibilities here are at the district. So our cross-connection control program here at the district is currently managed by our water utility senior water quality technician and inspector, with oversight from the chief operator, which is myself, the assistant water utility director. But most of the implementation, management, and day-to-day operation of this program is conducted by our senior water quality tech. So what does management and implementation of this program entail? It requires, first of all, for the appropriate staff to be managing it. That program requires several certifications and licenses. Two licenses you see there from the State Water Resources Control Board, which is basically a distribution operator and a treatment operator certification. And then with the American Water Works Association, affectionately known as the AWWA, we must also staff certified testers and cross-connection program specialists. And so our program administrator responsibilities include several items. First of which are inspections. These include for new construction and plan review. So if we have new construction here within the district's distribution system, our staff make sure those plans are reviewed and are able to assess any potential hazards. We do conduct routine site surveys and make cross-connection risk assessments based on evaluation of hazards on any property. And then, hopefully not too often, we do investigate backflow events. So if they're reported to us or if we discover them, we do an investigation and follow up with a report that eventually makes its way to the regulating board, which is State Water Board. And then much of our work also includes annual compliance. This is testing for district assemblies. All of our facilities, pump stations here at the district office, we equip our facilities with these assemblies to prevent cross-connection or backflow within our own equipment. So staff does the testing in-house, and we do also keep those records. And then customer-owned facilities. This includes notifying customers when their tests are due, following up when they're out of compliance and they don't submit the testing. We review each of the test reports to make sure the reports or the testing is done in compliance with code and regulation. There's very specific testing that must be done with each of these assemblies every year to ensure they're working properly. And then finally, maintaining those records. The State Water Resources Control Board comes on an annual basis to review our records, making sure that every assembly in the district had been tested in the previous calendar year, and if it hadn't been, an explanation why. So over the last 5 or 6 years, the district's inventory of assemblies has grown significantly. We've seen an average growth rate of about 93 assemblies a year. There's several reasons behind this. As you may recall, recent construction code and fire code now requires new construction for residential buildings to have fire protection systems. Most of those fire protection systems require a backflow assembly. So while your irrigation, residential irrigation, or just your internal plumbing don't require these assemblies, your fire protection systems do. And then there's just also general growth in here in Truckee. In addition to that, through our site surveys, we've identified additional hazards out there that we now equip or require those assemblies be equipped on the premises. Our inventory is approaching 1,500 district-wide. Just to give that some perspective, about 6 years ago, we were in the 500 to 600 assemblies in the system, and so we've seen some pretty significant growth. And those include, the small 1-inch assemblies all the way up to 6, 8, and 10-inch backflow assemblies.
You say we have 5 inspectors?
I'm sorry?
Did you say we have 5 inspectors?
No, we have 1.
Oh, I thought you said you had 5 in the earlier pages there.
We have one full-time employee who's dedicated to this program. We do have multiple employees who can do tests in a pinch,
Oh, okay.
who have
That's
gone through the
maybe what I heard.
certification process, so they can do it, and so they can recognize hazards in the field also.
Oh, good, good.
Yes, most of our water utility staff are licensed and certified, but there is one dedicated inspector to this program. So as you can see, growth has had an impact. It's created additional workload and the need to dedicate additional labor to the administration, inspection, and enforcement of our program. We've seen staff hours increase up to 800 hours a year dedicated to the administration and implementation of this program. So currently, district does have code in the district code that addresses backflow and cross-connection control. Chapter 6 of the code provides some governance and guidance on how that program is administered. It includes here a list of the items here: purpose of the program, district responsibilities, customer responsibilities, what the protective device requirements are, some language on testing and maintenance. And then there is a provision in district code, while we don't have fees on our miscellaneous fee schedule for this at this time, there is provision in the code for that. As I mentioned, current district code is very general in its language in terms of backflow cross-connection control program. It has a high-level overview and provides some guidance on what those requirements are and whose responsibilities. Staff will be proposing to bring before the board for approval revisions to this code to include additional provisions and some more detail on the requirements. These will include assembly testing and maintenance requirements, submittal of assembly test reports. Staff will be proposing consideration for making this all digital submittal as opposed to actually hard copy paper submittal forms. And then some extra guidelines on program enforcement. Staff spends a tremendous amount of time following up on delinquent or out-of-compliant devices throughout the system. We do have authority with our permit to terminate water service due to noncompliance with the cross-connection control program. It does require staff time, follow-up. There are some requirements in the state of California for notification of termination of service, so that's built into this. And then staff will be bringing before the board some considerations for fees and charges to account for these costs. As I just mentioned, staff will present to the board some amendments to the district code and a proposed miscellaneous fee schedule to recover some of the costs of administering this program. Some of the considerations will be costs for program administration, site inspections and re-inspections, reconnection fees, the cost of sending staff out to reconnect once a service is terminated for noncompliance, delinquent test reports, and additional in-house testing requirements. While there are not direct fiscal impact with this particular workshops, the fiscal impacts associated with the proposed changes to district code will be presented to the board at the future meeting. And staff recommendation this evening is just to provide input to staff, and I'm available for any questions.
Oh, thank you, Brian. Is there any public input at this time? No public input. We'll close public input, move on to director comments. Joe, you got any comments?
No, it's just good to know that we have, everybody's on point on these cross connections. I mean, they're out there in the field and they see something, they can have it fixed. And I understand, you said the authority gives us the power to cut water. We're the authority, aren't we?
Yes, Title 17 of California regulations puts the authority on either the district or a local health agency, but in the county of Nevada and Placer County, that authority is placed on the water provider, so that's us.
Good, okay. Thank you.
Krista, do you have any comments?
Just about, at the moment, we must have some sort of fees and charges associated with like we're talking about reviewing that and recommending changes, but is it like nothing now? Do we have?
Currently, the cost of the administration of this program is built into our rate structure for all of the customers within the district.
Okay,
There aren't any specific fees associated with the administration of this program. It's built into our rate structure.
gotcha. And this program seems to be expanding rapidly and
Yes.
bumping everybody's bills up in consequence? Okay.
You could look at it that way, certainly.
And another thing, in the past years, the people that had to cross the backflow devices on their property would call the PUD or an inspector, and he used to be an independent man. And that's not the case anymore. It's got to go through the PUD, right?
That's partially correct. So the submittal of the test reports and proof of the device passing the test must go through the PUD. But the customers are still encouraged to call certified testers from the community, plumbers, other private third-party testers to come and do the device testing.
We also have help then on that side. It's not that we're all alone just watching the whole ballgame. We have the perimeter covered through plumbers and certified people,
Correct.
the ones that used to do it before anyway.
Correct.
All right, and so they're still legal. I mean,
As long as they're licensed through AWWA.
And when they go and inspect, then they just turn their report back into the district to clear the customer.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Jeff, any comments?
I'd just like to say how awesome it was. I went to the PUD website right here on my iPad, and there it is, backflow, there's all these questions, FAQs, and then I was like, oh, what about 656 that Brian just, boom, there it is, clicked on it. So I just wanted to say that was pretty awesome. How fast it was to get there, really appreciate the effort on this, so, and next step, part 3, fees, so I'm ready for that. All right, thanks, Brian.
Sticky wicket.
Tony?
No comment, other than, if there is an opportunity, there's, quite a few testers in the area now due to the explosion of this program, not only here, but in other agencies. So, if there is an opportunity to work with them on some of the changes that we're proposing, I think it'd be good, because it is their livelihood, part of their livelihood, and providing service to the community as well. So it would be important to try and roll them in if we can. We've done that in Tahoe City, and it's an important process. But in general, the administration of this process is extremely time-consuming. With that many devices, you're trying to track down people who aren't testing or who are second homeowners who, missed the letter, and now you're threatening to shut them off. And it takes a lot of time to do the program thoroughly and correct, as stated in Title 17. And so I appreciate the updates and the concerns over the impacts to staffing and next steps. So thank you.
Oh, that was nice, no comment there, Tony.
Brian, I'm back again. Now, these inspectors that I was talking about a few minutes ago, they came out and charged. They charged us the service fee or their call-out fee. And right now, if they call a PUD, if the customers call a PUD, we don't have a charge?
Right now, the district does not provide testing services for privately owned devices. We do the testing for our own devices. We do provide customers at their request a list of local contractors that wish to be on our list of testers. But currently, we don't do the testing of privately owned assemblies. That is required to be done by a third-party contractor.
Okay, so, but you were mentioning that there will be some fees coming up in our district.
One of the considerations.
Huh?
In your future.
Yeah, I know. It's gotta be, we have 1,400 of them out there. That's quite a few. I can remember we had 3.
Times have changed.
I was one of them. So, thank you, Brian.
All right, thank you, Brian. Very nice report, and I guess move on to part 3. I think you know what we want, so go to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to workshop item 15. It'll be the General Manager Succession Transition Ad Hoc Committee update. And Pam Hobday, thank you very much.
Good evening, President Ellis, board members. I'm happy to present workshop item 15, the General Manager Succession Transition Ad Hoc Committee update, as well as with the assistance of 2 of your ad hoc committee members, Director Finn and Director Laliotis. We have been busy at work again. So just an update generally. The ad hoc committee has now had 12 meetings as of yesterday for a total of 24 hours together. And we're really pleased to bring you tonight an update on our executive search firm process. So the RFP to executive search firms was sent to 12 firms on September 23rd, 2019. I want you to take a look at these firms, and just to give you some general background, they all have locations in California, but these are all national firms. They're highly recognized. We were really excited to send the RFPs off to these firms, and the RFP was due back on October 21st at 4:30. And we received 9 firms out of the 12, or 75%. And in my experience, that's awesome. I mean, this is really exceptional. And it says a lot about this utility district. It really does. I know from my consulting firm, and we heard this yesterday from one of the from one of the firms that we interviewed, people get to choose who they work with when you're dealing with firms at this level. And so these 9 firms who responded, I want you to see at the end, Slavin Management was unsolicited. They weren't on this original list, and somehow they found us and applied. Our firms and interviews, Director Finn's going to give you an update about what we're doing right now with interviewing with the 7 firms that we are interviewing. Director Finn.
Sure. So 9 responded. We decided not to interview with the NRCA because they're more of a co-op focused organization, so we didn't think it was directly applicable to us, so we tried to narrow down the field a little bit. And one of the applicants withdrew, citing other factors, too much work. So yesterday, we did interviews with Ralph Anderson and Associates, Coffin Associates, and Slavin Management Consultants. And tomorrow, we are going to continue our marathon sessions with Avery Associates, CPS HR, and Peckham and McKinney. And then the following week on Wednesday, we will be interviewing with Korn Ferry. So we're going to dive deeply into all of these firms. And the ad hoc committee, all of us have been asking the questions. All of us have been the same question with each firm. We ask the same questions, each of us. So it's been a real, a good experience practice for interviewing our candidates when we get to that point. So
Are they coming up here for the interviews?
yes,
nice.
well,
Okay.
yesterday, all 3 came. Korn Ferry will be interviewing via Zoom, so we're going to do it online. And one of our Avery and Associates, I believe, tomorrow is also going to be interviewing via the internet.
As well as Peckham and McKinney.
And Patrick McKinney. So that is a tool that we are using. So that's where we stand as far as interviews are going at the moment.
Director Finn, did you want to talk about the fee range?
Oh, yeah, it's right up there. From 18,000 was the lowest, and all the way up to 110, but those are definitely the outliers. Most of the others were grouped in between about $20,000 and $30,000. So is where the majority of these firms fell.
Just kind of an update, with a technologically wise group who have offices all over, it's to be expected now that there would be people who do want to use Zoom or GoToMeeting or Slack, and so we put that in our RFP. So it was not expected that everyone would have to fly in or drive in. And then, Director Otis, do you want to continue your update?
Sure. So prior to the close of the RFP process, we as an ad hoc committee worked together to develop and review the questions that we were going to interview, that we were going to present during the interview to each firm. So we went through those questions, and then we agreed on a weighting basis for those questions. That weighting basis is available if you turn to page 7 in your copy of the RFP. Is there another slide that has them, or no? Just
This is what we used
okay.
that you can refer to.
But if you go to page 7, here you go. Yeah, I have it. If you go to page 7, you'll see how we weighted each of the key locations, including recruitment, methodology, and strategies, as well as experience. Anyway, if you go through this, there's a weighting process that we are going through, and there's a point system that we are using. And so it's been very interesting after the first round of interviews to go through and tally up all of our points, and between myself, and just a reminder, the ad hoc committee is myself, Krista Finn, Joe Horvath, and Brian Wright. So it's been an interesting process to tally up the numbers at the end of the interview, and they've been surprisingly similar in some cases, but it's been a good process. So All this information was presented in the RFP, which means the firms should be aware of kind of what we're looking for and where the weighting of the questions land. So it's not a surprise in any way. It shouldn't be a surprise in any way.
With just giving general comments, Director Finn and Director Laliotis, could you share kind of what the four of you discussed a little bit without specificity of names of firms, but your observations of the diversity of the first three firms and some of your surprises?
I was actually quite surprised. The first two were just exact opposites kind of each other as far as experience and ideology went, and it was a real surprise to me. I wasn't expecting, I really wished that both of those firms could have been combined into the one perfect firm. So, just the way they use technology, depth of experience versus, sort of looking towards the future, and it was interesting. It was interesting, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow's firms to continue sifting through.
Yeah, I mean, we're asking very detailed and pointed questions, but also, there's a lot to the questions. So it's been interesting to see how each firm has sort of either nailed it or kind of skirted around it or, answered 12 questions in one. So it's been, but as Chris has said, the first two were definitely like polar opposites and especially considering just where we are in society and workforce today. But it's a great process. I wish all the board members could sit in on it, but obviously it's a huge time commitment for all of us. But we will be bringing back a lot of recommendations. And I do want to point out one of the fun, more interesting questions we ask is sort of based on what their approach is to vetting candidates based on our climate and our lifestyle here in Truckee, and how they are going to approach trying to understand whether or not a candidate, how they're going to acclimate to this climate and this, the things we deal with up here, especially in the wintertime, not only from just dealing with snow, but, a lifestyle perspective. So that's been a really fun question to ask and see
Tony, how did you?
See how each firm approaches it.
How did you come to the point that they were like opposite? I mean, it was one sound like they were old-fashioned and did old-fashioned ways, and the other one was right, modern, up-to-date and stuff, or?
That's fairly accurate.
That's pretty accurate.
That was pretty accurate.
It's hard to talk in a public session about these firms.
Oh, yeah,
So we
I
can
know
talk
that.
generally, but you pretty much nailed it in maybe not old school. I don't know, Director Finn and Laliotis, how would you describe it?
I wouldn't call it old school. I think, you have a very seasoned and long-tenured firm, and the next firm didn't have that background and tenure, but was more focused on the technology side of the process, and so that's.
Yeah, I mean, ideologically, you hit it exactly
Yeah.
kind of on the head, and they were coming at it from different perspectives as to, they're two companies that do the same thing, but they really, one approached it more from the public sector and one more from the private sector, and how they maintain their pools of candidates and how they approached candidates and presented them, theoretically to us. It was just interesting, different responses.
Yeah, I think Tony hit it on the head when he says that, okay, you're gonna have to hit on how it is for us, our PUD, our district, our community. And that's what you're gonna have to find in these guys, I guess. To the minute. I mean, not.
No, it's
history
a
past.
very important question. I think that, I'm sure that when the PUD is hiring staff, that they
Yeah.
try and vet that as best they can. But, this is a long-term,
Sure is.
top executive position. There's, I won't say a lot at risk, but there's, quite a bit at risk. And we've going through a long process to get somebody here, and for someone to just, go through a winter and go, I'm out. It's,
Just because of 600 inches of snow?
well, yeah, exactly. So, no one's mentioned that yet in answering their question, saying, yeah, I saw you get 400 inches of snow a year. But, that's a very important aspect, even though people really don't think about it as much as sort of the more classical interview questions.
Yeah.
So, as both Director Finn and Laliotis talked about, we have metrics. All four ad hoc committee members, after each interview, fill out their metrics. It's really interesting to see the differentiation with each component of the interview process, from looking at the recruitment methodologies that have 50 points. And so, no, it's not willy-nilly, and everyone's taking it very, very seriously and representing you all very, very well. So our next steps are, we have 3 interviews tomorrow. We have a follow-up interview on the 13th. We will try to come to either 1 or 2 recommendations on the 13th, and we will do background searches as far as calling references and people we know in the industry, all of us, and then be ready to come to you on November 20th with a recommendation. We want to be able to call the firms back with our recommendation on the 18th, on Monday the 18th. Come to you fully ready to say, this is who we recommend and why. Then you'll finalize the contract, or we will finalize the contract and present it to you on December 4th.
On the follow-up, is this of the 6?
This would be of the 7.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All of them, all right.
Yeah. The follow-up, you mean as far as reference checks?
I don't know, you said you were gonna have a follow-up on next week.
Yes. So next week, we just have one more interview, which would make the 7th
It was
interview.
It was the 7 firms, or the 6 firms.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Good.
You don't have 1 or 2 that you've already selected and narrowed it down to 1 or 2.
No.
It's the whole 6, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be the entire 7 that we're going to be looking at.
Okay.
Okay, is there any public input on this subject? No public input, we'll close that. And any director comments, I guess, or are we done?
I'm done.
Any more comments?
They're doing a good job, but that's fine.
Keep
I'm
on
glad
going.
I don't have to
Thank-
make
thank-
any decisions.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to routine business, we have the treasurer's report, November 2019. We have item A, approval of the treasurer's report of fund balances for the month ended September 2019. Is there a motion on that? Or anything to add to it? No changes?
So moved?
Jeff moves, is there a second?
Second.
Joe seconded, so do we take a roll call vote, please?
Director Aguero,
Yes.
Director Finn,
Yes.
Vice President Bender,
Yes.
President Ellis.
Yes.
Director Laliotis.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then we have item B, approval of disbursements for October 2019.
Move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Joe moved and Krista seconded on approval of disbursements for October 2019. And could we have a roll call vote?
Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Finn?
Yes.
Vice President Bender?
Yes.
President Ellis?
Yes.
Director Laliotis?
Yes.
Thank you.
And then approval of the minutes of October 2nd, 2019, October 16th, 2019. Is there any changes to the minutes? Corrections?
I don't have any.
Okay. I'll move to approve the minutes of October 2nd, 2019, October 16th, 2019. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I moved and Jeff seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passed. And now we will go to closed session. Closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, Brian Wright, Assistant Water Utility Director, Joe Horvath, Electric Utility Director, Michael D. Hawley, General Manager, and Joe Wiley, Counsel. And then also item 19, closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, potential litigation, one case. Item 20, closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, public employee performance evaluation, general manager's performance plan review. And we will now go to closed session, and that's it.
Thank you.